I'm Jim, and welcome to Retro Warriors episode 472. Woo! As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by Viable Human Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Hi, Saturn.
Hi, Justin.
We
totally weren't just talking about vomit.
For 10 entire minutes.
Granted, only like 4 or 5 of those minutes were vomit.
Not even just talking about it, like talking about the texture of it.
Granted, that's how we got to it. Was
Please
talking about
subscribe to our Patreon so you can hear it. Please.
If you want to hear vomit talk.
As far as housekeeping, I'm still having internet issues. I'm gonna have to call my ISP and see what's up, but just so people know, we had a couple hiccups last episode, and there may be hiccups this episode.
We did some troubleshooting and diagnosis, and it is definitely his internet.
It's definitely my internet's being goofy, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But just to put that out there, that's what's going on. My week.
Uh-huh.
I finally picked up one of the X games, not the X Games,
right,
but the X
series of games called X.
Yeah, this just sounds like a deconstructed version of the regular X Games.
Yeah,
like they lost the license to the names, and then they have to do a Prince thing where they're like the game's
exactly
formerly known as X.
Right. This is why things should not go by the name X. It is confusing and it is frustrating. That is not a proper name for things.
I've been playing X3: Albion Prelude.
Yeah.
Which the X Games are a series of games. Yes. Which what makes them even more confusing is X3, which you think would be the third X game, right? No, X3 is 4 X Games. So they're consecutively like the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth X Games, and then X4 is like the 7th, and there's like 2. It's very weird because all the expansions are also standalones.
Right. This is a series that I've been considering for many years.
Yeah.
And every time I look into it, I get more confused and end up not playing it.
So, I just wanted a space sim. I was like, I get in that mode where I'm like, I just want to like be like a space trucker and just truck around and like mine asteroids and sometimes shoot a guy with a laser beam and just kind of chill. And it is definitely that. I'll say that straight up. It is that. There are again 4 X3 games, and Albion Prelude, I believe, is considered the best of the 4. But fuck if I know. I just went and I was like, which one's got the good reviews? And it was like Albion Prelude. And I got the gold bundle of all 4 of them for like $5 because X4 is out. So it's the one that costs a bunch of money. And I've been playing it, and it's fun. It is very much that like kind of, bouncing around between systems, finding resources, taking missions from dudes, hitting the comms channel for like other dudes in the system and talking to them about dude stuff. I don't know why I keep saying dude so much. And what's cool about it is you can pick a start. So it's kind of scenario based, right? So you start your scenario and you're like, hey, what do you want to be? You can just be like a merchant. You can be like, I started as an Argon peacekeeper because I kind of wanted to get the sort of combat stuff all figured out, because there's nothing worse than playing one of these kind of chill space trucker games. Then suddenly you're stuck in combat, but you've never been in combat and you don't know how it fucking works. And you've got like a tanker full of ore or whatever. And so I'm just kind of playing through it, and it feeds you missions pretty regularly. So there's not a lot of just like, what the fuck do I do? Where do I go stuff? There is a lot of like space sim things you need to figure out. Like you have a jump drive, but it takes energy cells. So you need to figure out how to buy energy cells, and you can only repair your ship at shipyards. And if you get a missile, you have to equip it before you can fire the missile. Just, general weird space sim things that you figure out playing them. But just as far as like floating around in space and sometimes shooting the Terran peacekeeping forces with my Argon ship.
Right. So they deserve it.
Apparently, I don't know. They tell me they deserve it. I mean, what do I know, right? I just
fucking peacekeepers.
I'm just doing what they tell me, Saturn. But as far as just like doing that, it's fun. It's pretty enjoyable. I like the space combat. I played a lot of like Everspace is kind of my closest, most recent space game like that I've played, and it feels very dogfighty, right? Yeah. And this is like when you're in the little ships, it feels very dogfighty, but when you start to get in the bigger ships, it feels very like ship to ship, like on the ocean kind of combat, right? Yeah. Which is what I like. I like having that scale where it's like not everything is just like X-Wings and TIE fighters. You've also got the big like capital ships. Yeah. And so it's really cool. Like if you're just looking for a chill, totally offline space game where you can kind of do your own thing, it trickles missions out to you. It's super cheap because it's always on sale somewhere. And you don't have to have a fucking account or invest in a HOTAS or whatever other fancy shit. I mean, for the $5 I paid, I've gotten $5 of enjoyment out of it.
Nice.
Also, being fully offline, it has this thing called a SETA drive that you can set to 1,000%. So whenever you're like, all right, autopilot, I want you to take me to this system over here, and you're just kind of chilling at your console waiting, you can turn on your SETA drive, and the game runs at 1,000% speed.
Nice.
Which is really cool. So that's a huge thing. Because like I like Elite Dangerous, but it's so slow and it's always online and there's no offline version. Like I just want to have a whole space. I just want a whole universe in my laptop that I can dive into. Is that so much to ask anymore? Like I don't.
You know, I can see that. That was one of those things I always wanted in games when I was younger. I was like, I want this whole universe that I can just explore. And then
it just lives in my computer.
And as soon as I started playing open world games, I was like, never mind. I don't actually want this.
Now, I've not played the other scenarios, and I know some of them are more open than others. But I think if you're like, hey, I want some direction, like I want a guy to pop up in the corner of my screen and be like, go here, do this.
Yeah.
At least the Argonne Peacekeeper scenario so far does have that.
That's good.
So I don't know if any of because I imagine you would not want the combat-oriented scenarios.
Probably not.
I don't know if any of the non-combat scenarios are more or less directed. But it's been fun. Again, for $5, like fuck, it's whatever.
Now, before you go on, I did want to mention because you kept saying "dude" over and over again.
Yeah, these dudes, space dudes.
Yeah, it made me think of the sticker that my brother had when we were kids. That was a guy on a skateboard and had a little thought bubble over his head that said "dudicle," and it just made me think of that for some reason.
The fuck is a dudicle?
That's like radical, but it's a dude. That's totally dudicle, man. That's just what it made me think of.
So I also have been playing more MechWarrior 5.
Yeah.
It's a pretty evergreen title for me. I'll boot it up. I'll do a couple missions and have a good time. I'm very excited for the Clan Invasion, I guess, standalone expansion that's coming out in October.
Yeah.
And it's good. I kickstarted the last BattleTech Kickstarter, the Mercenaries Kickstarter. And that just came in the mail, so I'm all like, nice. Oh man, BattleTech, I like BattleTech. Right. And since it's a tabletop miniatures game, getting to play it is extremely difficult because I don't know a lot of people that are going to sit down for, a tabletop miniatures game.
What?
And so I was like, oh, I'll go play some MechWarrior. Get your kid roped
into it.
And man, MechWarrior, it's still, it might not be too complicated for her because there's two versions of BattleTech, right? There's the old school one that's very much like the 80s where you got these big giant sheets for each mech. But then they got a newer version one called Alpha Strike, and you just have this like each mech is a little trading card sized card, and it's dry erase, and you just bubble in stuff as you get hit. So maybe that's a good idea. Anyway, MechWarrior 5 still so good. I've still got it fully modded out. I've got all the DLC. I did a mission earlier tonight that was so much fun. Like we show up and we have to take out this enemy base, but we have to destroy satellite arrays so that they can land allies, and they land allies for us. And there's like 20 mechs all fighting each other, and then they hired a freelance mech outfit to come help them, so we had like other mercenary groups showing up to fight us in the middle of the combat.
Dang.
Like, I know that when MechWarrior 5 came out, it was bland. I played it at launch. It didn't have a lot going on, and I know that buying all the DLC for it is expensive as fuck. But if you can ever catch MechWarrior 5 with the DLC on sale, man, it is it's so much fun. Like playing with all the stuff turned on and a few mods because it's got full workshop support on Steam, so you don't even have to do that shit where you're like having to re-download your mods or update them manually or whatever.
Yeah.
It's great. It's so much fun. I need to play more. I had a co-op campaign going with Andrew for a little bit, and that was pretty fun. It's just a blast. I love that game. It's so much fun to just jump into an Atlas and stomp around and blow up other mechs. It's a good time.
Nice.
Saturn, what have you been playing?
Mostly Final Fantasy 14.
I hear Dawn Trail sucks.
I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that. I have heard some people saying that. And,
Steam says it sucks.
It seems fine to me. I've not had any major issues with it. Okay, I have one major issue with it. So because it takes place,
the suckiness.
It takes place in the quote New World, which is like the the North South America area.
Okay.
So there's a lot of like Mesoamerican influence and everything, but there's also a lot of tacos everywhere. Everybody has tacos.
Oh yeah, you mentioned this. Yes.
Yeah. And what gets me, which I didn't immediately realize, is Japan doesn't know how to eat tacos.
Oh.
I did not know this going into this.
How do they eat tacos?
So every cinematic or FMV or anything where it shows somebody eating a taco, they hold it with two hands where the curved side is facing up, and they've got their two hands underneath it.
No.
So they're holding it from the bottom.
Tell me they don't just bite it in the middle on the curved edge.
Not at the middle, but like on the edge. They'll like eat the curved part like from like 40 degrees in for some reason.
Just eat it like a sandwich.
Kind of, and it's just weird. It's weird to watch every time. And I tried to look it up online, like, did these guys not ever eat a taco? Did they not have tacos in Japan? And instead, what I found was pictures and videos of people in Japan eating tacos this way.
No.
And it's the weirdest thing.
Someone needs to send Japan an email and be like, yo, dogs, let us help you out with your taco game.
Right?
Because
we just need Japan to learn how to eat tacos, is what I've learned.
It makes me think of, there's a bit in The Office where one of the characters is from the UK, and they have her eat a taco, and she doesn't know how to do it, so she holds it vertically in front of her face and uses her finger to scoop the filling into her mouth.
Nice.
And like that was the joke, is that they made her do that. That's
I will say
dumb.
They all seem to be soft tacos, which is at least somewhat accurate to Mexico, to like authentic tacos.
Sure.
But they're still just like chowing into the top of it. And that seems weird.
Are they doing like a crossover with Taco Bell or something? Or like what's happening?
They did a crossover with Mountain Dew.
What?
Where you could get an in-game mount by getting a bunch of Mountain Dews, and the mount is one of those big bird things from the Final Fantasy series that are called Zoo, like ZU.
No, Sam, they're called chocobos. The birds from...
No, that's a different bird.
Oh.
This is the enemy bird, not the friendly bird.
Oh.
But it's a recurring enemy that's been around since the second Final Fantasy game, called a Zoo, and... because it is Mountain Dew themed, it's called the Mountain Zoo.
God damn it.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah, me too. It's just a green shaded version of the zoo bird called Mountain Zoo. And the best part is they sold out. They sold out of the digital item mount on the Mountain Dew website.
They got tired of hitting Control-C, Control-V, so they're like, no, we're out. We ran out. There's no more left.
And that's that was the promotion, was the bird mount.
Wonderful. I think X3 is kind of filling that gap for me, but I kind of am feeling that sort of like MMO bigger world vibe, and then I either fire up MechWarrior or X3 and they kind of do it for me lately. So I've been plus if I do Final Fantasy at some point I have to buy the expansions, and it's like $60.
Yeah, that's true.
It's too much money. You know, I don't want to have to spend $60 on Final Fantasy expansions.
Well, at least you only have to buy the one expansion and it gives you all of them.
Yeah, it's $60.
I think it's $40 for Dawn Trail.
It was $60 on the Steams.
Is it? I thought
I'm
it was
pretty
40. Sure. I thought it was 60 for the special edition.
Oh, and, maybe. Yeah, you're right. It's $39.99.
Okay, good. Yeah.
But why do that when I can play Chained Together, which is perpetually on the Steam front page? It looks like streamer bait. How very strange of them. Yeah. I guess that we can do the news.
I guess.
If you feel like it. First up, Microsoft has announced new Game Pass pricing. A new middle tier will not include day one releases or EA Play.
And the big tier is now, what, $20 a month, I think?
Yeah, I don't remember the number, but more.
Yeah.
It was previously like, what, 16? Something like that? I
believe so, yeah.
So
and before that, it was
increase.
12. So, yeah.
Really, I don't know. It's cool that they include EA Play, but like, I guess people are using it. It's got to be creating value because they keep including it. You know, it's been one of those things where they've had EA Play for a while. So,
right.
But for me, I'm like that could have gone day one, and I wouldn't have cared.
Yeah, I will likely drop down. Well, I am considering dropping down to the middle tier because I don't need the day one releases and I don't need EA Play, but I think you only get streaming with the top tier.
Yeah.
And I do use the streaming from time to time.
Also, FTC is investigating degraded product after these changes and claiming Microsoft is, quote, exercising market power post-merger.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know if I agree with that. I think this is a trajectory they've already been on, but I'm not upset at the FTC pushing Microsoft around. So, although they seem to be protesting by tanking OneDrive tonight, this has been their response.
No, I think it was a DDoS because they also Xbox Live is having issues. All kinds of Microsoft stuff is having issues. I will say that as far as Game Pass goes, I think I'd mentioned it on one of our previous recording sessions. There was that preview of GeForce Now integration, and now they have properly released the GeForce Now integration, which lets you immediately launch something through GeForce Now through the Xbox app on Windows.
Yeah.
Don't use that because it redirects you to the GeForce Now website to do your GeForce Now, which doesn't give you full resolution. You have to install the GeForce Now app to get full resolution, and it won't launch that. Even if it's installed, it'll still just send you to the website.
Good job. You did it, Microsoft.
Right.
It's okay. Maybe they can get in touch with the people that make Windows and see if they can figure out how to make that all function properly.
No, that's impossible.
Arc System Works announces a 3D revival of Double Dragon. I have mixed feelings, but I'm willing to give them a shot.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. I like Arc System Works. They do good stuff. I have to say, Double Dragon is a bumpy franchise.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan myself now.
I feel like I dislike as many of those games as I like, so it's a little tough. Nintendo announces the first new game in the Famicom Detective Club series, Emio the Smiling Man.
Which the trailer for this looked so cool.
Because a lot of excitement about this.
Yeah, because the trailer looked like a straight-up horror game, which I was very excited about. And then it's, a visual novel, which I'm less excited about. But
yeah,
it is neat that, one, there's a new game in the series, and two, that it's being released internationally and not, just in Japan. I'm trying to remember when the last game was released. It would have been on FDS, so 30 some odd years ago.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, so it's neat that they're reviving this franchise. But I'd rather see an actual horror game from Nintendo. That's what I want.
Yeah. Clear River Games has announced native EU releases of several Switch shmups previously released by LRG. One of the games, Mushihime-sama Manama, is being delisted digitally on August 10th.
Mushihime-sama.
Which sucks.
Yeah, it does suck that it's being delisted, but there is a new physical release coming out, so that's exciting. I'm glad that, one, these games are getting physical releases, two, that Europe is getting their own instead of having to deal with LRG's bullshit. However, it's so long after LRG's releases that many people already ordered the LRG versions, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because this is a chance to get Radiant Silvergun natively in Europe, but, a year and a half, 2 years after the LRG release.
Yeah. Apparently that limited run wasn't that limited because, here it is again.
All right.
Analog has announced a $500 version of the Pocket made out of aluminum.
Oh, boy.
I asked this in the chat, but people know that the Game Boy was successful because it used really old tech and it was affordable, right?
No, they don't know that.
Do people know that that's what, like, if the Game Boy came out and it cost 3 times as much as the Game Gear, which granted the Game Gear came later, but you know what I mean? It wouldn't have done well. It would have struggled. This is a defining feature of the Game Boy, is that it was affordable.
I think the more direct comparison would have been the Lynx, since it came out the same year as the Game Boy and cost way more and failed.
Yeah, like $500. Someone in the chat was like, "Oh, do I want to get a PlayStation 5 or a Game Boy?" I was like, "Yeah, that's when you phrase it that way.
Yeah,
it feels extra stupid."
And you can get a PS5 for cheaper than that.
That's true.
Because the digital only PS5 is only $400. You get a
PC
Series S for significantly cheaper.
Yeah, Series S is like those are on sale all the time. Yeah. Hell, you could buy like a Switch and several games.
Yeah.
You could buy a Switch and several years of Nintendo Switch Online, which includes a bunch of Game Boy games.
Right.
There's a lot of options. Yeah. PCSX 2.0 was announced.
Yes.
Which is exciting.
New release. Yeah.
I feel like PCSX 2 kind of just sat there stagnating for a number of years, and then all of a sudden we've seen a lot of movement real fast. Yes. So that's very exciting.
This is when they finally getting rid of all the separate plugins. So now it is all contained in one thing. You're not having to get a video plugin and an audio plugin and an optical drive plugin and all this stuff. Yeah. I hated that era of emulation.
It was annoying.
So I'm glad to see a PS2 emulator that has all of that, and it's great.
Grand Theft Auto 3 ported to Dreamcast by modders, so cool.
Yeah,
I guess. If you want to play GTA 3 on Dreamcast.
Back in the day, they had originally announced it for Dreamcast, if I remember right, and then canceled that version and released it on PS2. Yeah. So Dreamcast owners who were waiting for it 25 years ago can finally play it.
There you go. Finally, the wound that never healed. Goemon 64 gets a PC decompilation port. The next one of these decompiled N64 games. Currently, it's only the Japanese version.
Right.
But still great to see. I'm excited. I assume this is piggybacking off of that new tech that lets us,
I believe so,
or not us, but people more capable than us, decompile N64 games. So it's good to see. Good to see that. Microsoft and Amazon announced a Fire Stick / controller bundle now that Game Pass is on Fire Stick. Could this be the future version of Game Pass, or the future version of the Xbox brand in a preview?
There is some rumors that Microsoft is trying to squash that says that they're considering discontinuing the Xbox hardware in Europe. So I could see it go in this direction. I'm a little surprised that Amazon was willing to do this, considering they also offer a Fire Stick Luna controller bundle. And I would think that Amazon would want to push that a little more, but
Amazon confuses the shit out of me sometimes anyway, so who the fuck knows?
Right.
Resident Evil 7 on iOS has reportedly sold less than 2,000 units.
Oh, no.
Meaning that I don't think we're going to see a lot more Resi games on iOS.
I think they had already announced several of them, didn't they? When 7 was
I thought
announced?
they did, but this probably puts a lot of that into question.
Yeah. It's crazy that all the people with the newest brand new iPhone didn't all want to buy Resident Evil 7 and play that on it. Who would have thought?
Microsoft and Disney have announced an Xbox controller featuring Deadpool's ass.
It's where we are in 2024, Justin.
I've got problems with this controller, multiple problems. First of all, if I buy a controller with a human butt on it, then I want it on the front of the controller where I can always look at it. It's on the back, and I get it, butts go on the back, but I'm not going to look at the back. Also, that's where my fingies go.
Give us our front butts, Microsoft.
Yeah, put the front butt on it. Also, if you put the butt on the front, you could make the butthole the Xbox button, and you can make it pliable, so you have to dig down in there to press. I think that would be a home run.
You got to dig in the butt.
But just a hard plastic butt on the back of my controller?
That's
hard
stupid. Plastic? I thought it was going to be like squishy.
It looked hard plastic.
Oh, that's even more disappointing.
I'm pretty sure it's hard plastic. I'm trying to pull the news article back up now, but it looks like hard plastic.
I just looked at the picture and was hoping it was plushy or squishy or something.
No, it really is looking like it's going to be hard plastic. So it's unfortunate. It's a no-go for us. We were previously going to buy all butt controllers, but now we've changed our minds.
Yeah.
Google and Microsoft each use more power than over 100 countries. Tell me again how corporations are so great. Aren't they so great?
Yay.
Awesome.
And that's after they killed Stadia, Justin.
Yeah, I know. They've got all this extra energy they don't need, and they're just still.
Just floundering all this former Stadia energy.
Nintendo has, for some reason, announced a standalone Joy-Con charging stand because I guess they forgot that every other company on Earth has made one before them, and nobody gives a shit.
And there was also that controller that they released that basically worked as this.
Yes.
That had the charge port on it.
Yes.
I'm guessing, some rumors are that this is related to the upcoming hardware announcement. That maybe these controllers won't charge properly on the new hardware itself, and so you'll need this separate adapter.
Yeah.
But but who knows?
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck's happening at Nintendo anymore. And I'm not going to try to guess. And finally, the Halo TV series has been canceled by Paramount Plus after 2 seasons. The sophomore season curse that so many shows have died by.
I did not watch any of it.
I didn't watch it either, and I like Halo. I just didn't.
I don't care for Halo itself.
I've known multiple people that get really into the Halo mythos, the lore, the universe. I knew people that read, there was like novels, they read all the books. Halo's just never been that for me. It's just been green man shoots gun. And so I didn't care. I was like, it's just going to be military porn.
What are you playing? I'm playing Green Man shoots gun.
Green Man shooting a gun.
Which is also the subtitle of the Army Men games.
Right, obviously. Army Men 3D : Green Man shoots gun. It was one of the later releases.
Spin-off.
Which brings us to our topic at hand.
Yeah.
Which is favorite Tetris ports and versions.
How does that bring us to our topic at hand, Justin?
Because it does, Saturn.
Oh, okay.
Because it does. Because they finally landed the final block in the Halo TV series and it cleared all the lines. So now we're going to talk about our favorite Tetrises, which is how I've been pluralizing it.
Our favorite Tetris game, Tetris 4, Green Man with a gun.
Synopsis. Turns out there are still new things to do with a 40-year-old game.
Yes.
As far as scope, there's been a lot of ports of Tetris. It was originally made for the Electronica 60 in 1985, but for people that haven't been paying attention, it's made a few appearances on other platforms here and there.
Yeah.
Some ports aren't officially licensed by the Tetris company, while some of them are. We're not really saying like these are all official Tetris ports or anything like that. Right. They're just versions of Tetris we found and played.
And then, of course, there are the ports that thought they were licensed and later learned they were not
that
licensed.
They were not.
Yeah.
Also, we have not played every possible port, conversion, fan game, whatever of Tetris.
Well, I have.
Saturn has. I have not. We didn't really set a scope. I think we both kind of mentally were like trying to stay within the idea of like basic Tetris,
right?
Like this should be a rectangular vertical playing field with falling blocks that clear as lines get filled in. I think because when you start getting into, if you're like, oh, what about Tetris with hats? Then yeah, sure, Hatris could go on the list, I guess. Yeah, if it was fun. It's kind of not.
It's not.
So kind of a weird scope and topic, but yes. As far as initial thoughts, first encounters with Tetris. Tetris, like mini games on the NES for me, was just always there.
Yeah.
I don't remember the year Tetris hit the NES, but I think I had already been born.
I think.
Yeah, I was 1 in 89. So by the time I was old enough, I'm 4 or 5 years old playing games. It was just always there.
Yeah.
I can't remember a time when it wasn't available to me. We had both Tetrises. We had Tetris and we had Tetris 2, and that was all of Tetris, right? To me, in my brain, I was like, this is Tetris. They made a Tetris, and then they did a second Tetris called Tetris 2.
And then they canceled it.
And then I didn't really play a Tetris. Like, it's one of those things where occasionally I'd find it and play, like, clear a few lines and whatever. But it wasn't a thing for me until Tetris DS. When I was a teenager and Tetris DS came out, and I was like, holy shit, Tetris is like, you can spend a lot of hours playing Tetris. Before that, I played it kind of the way most people play Minesweeper, where like you're kind of bored and Minesweeper is there, so you'll open it and you'll click around a little bit, but you're not like making spreadsheets and getting into it, You're just like, that's the thing I can click on if I want. So Tetris DS was really where Tetris as like a mainstay video game for me kicked off. What about you?
I'd also first seen it on the NES because I live in America, and that's where we got things. So we had puzzle games like Tetris were competitive in my household. It was usually my mother who would start the competition because she would get really into it.
Yeah,
sometimes my father as well. But so there was some competitive Tetrising in our house. And then I saw the PC version, the DOS version that Spectrum Holobyte released at my aunt's house, and was like, "Oh, this is trash. I don't want that." And And then I saw the Game Boy version. I was like, oh, so we're just going to put this on everything now. It's just going to be the same game over and over and over and over again. And why should I bother? Because I've already played it on NES. And so I just kind of ignored it for a while until the N64 version, when it had 4-player competitive. And I was like, I have to know how that's supposed to work in Tetris.
Yeah.
And that got me excited about the weirdness in it and what weirdness could be brought to Tetris. And then I started actually seeking out other versions to see what weirdness was brought.
Other Tetrises. Tetri.
Yeah.
Whatever the plural is.
Tetronymos.
Well, no, that's the plural of the blocks.
Oh, shit.
So we just kind of did this the same way we do our top
Tetrapodes.
10s. And we're just going to kind of go back and forth picking them. I'm going to kind of start with sort of the cream of the crop here. With
which
Apotris.
You stole from.
I stole.
Which this was supposed to be the shared entry, and you stole it.
Yeah, no, I stole the shared entry. Because one, I've played more Apotris than Saturn. I can claim that victory.
Yeah.
Apotris is, if you don't listen to the rest of this episode, then just know that you should go play Apotris.
Yeah.
Just period, bar none. It costs $0, and it's the best Tetris, objectively. An open
it's the best vanilla Tetris.
It is an open source GBA Tetris. First came out in November 2022. It runs on original GBA hardware. It supports link cable play. It has continued development despite a DMCA strike against the game's itch page by the Tetris Company. The most recent version also had native ports to Windows, Mac, Linux, and Switch, although you can also play the Game Boy versions on emulators on those systems.
Yep.
It is possibly the most customizable, fun, feature-rich version of Tetris ever, and also isn't a Tetris because it's
unlicensed.
It's unlicensed. Right. It's just falling block game.
Yeah.
I put all the modes in here. There's a ton of modes. You've got your classic marathon. You've got sprint, which is you just try to do it as fast as you can. Dig, where you dig through garbage lines. Ultra, which is for best score. Blitz, which is best score and it keeps getting faster. Combo is where you're trying to get consecutive clears. It has survival, classic, master, death, zen, 2-player battle, CPU battle, training mode. It is a great way to just get better at Tetris because there is a mode where I think it's the training mode. Or I think that's the finesse trainer, where it will make a little. I talked about it on the show before when I was playing it recently. It makes little negative buzzing noises when you rotate a block and place it, but you do superfluous rotations. So it teaches you to make minimal movements to get your block in place, which is key to good Tetris game, right? It's really good. You can customize the playing field. You can customize the blocks, the backgrounds. You can load custom music that you load into the ROM. You can change the music. It is the everything Tetris, the Swiss Army knife Tetris. It does all of it. It's fantastic. It's snappy. It plays great. It's again, if you're like, I just what is the best Tetris to go play right now? My answer is perpetually Apotris.
It is not my favorite version.
That makes me so sad.
It is a very good version of Tetris. I would say it's the most interesting and most current, as far as currently supported Tetris. I would say it's the best version.
I mean, because I have other stuff on my list that I play for different reasons. But when I'm like, I just want the best, purest current Tetris, I think it holds that crown pretty easily.
If you're after the best pure Tetris experience, I would agree.
Yeah, if you're just like, I just want the Tetris and I don't need all the extra stuff.
But now, if you're here for more interesting Tetris,
if you're here for the extra stuff, we've got other stuff. But again, if you're just like, I just like Tetris, play Apotris. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Fantastic and for free.
Yes.
So you should all go play it. What's your pick, Saturn?
First, I'm going to do Tetris DS.
Oh yes, this is a shared pick for me as well. Tetris DS is my second pick too.
Yeah, so it's just excellent. It was developed and published by Nintendo back in 2006 on the DS, and it's so charming because everything is themed after NES games and various Nintendo franchises and stuff. And it's got the 6 different game modes. Each one has a different theme, and each one plays slightly differently, and they're all clever and interesting and fascinating in their own way.
Yeah.
And none of them, well, I guess the Mario one is vanilla Tetris, or as close to vanilla Tetris as you get on this.
It is. What I love about this, and I know we've talked about it before on the show. I'm sure we've talked about Tetris DS many times. But for at least the standard mode, the marathon mode, whenever you're playing, it's playing through a Mario game on the top screen.
Yeah.
And what's even weirder is it's a Mario game, but the background is like a real picture of like
photo background,
a green field.
Yeah.
And I constantly lose in this version of the game because I'm watching the top screen. I'm watching Mario play.
Yeah.
And it's just really cute and fun.
Yeah.
I will say this is also a very forgiving version of Tetris.
True. Yes.
I think blocks either have near or at least close to near infinite spin. It shows you like 6 or 7 of the next upcoming blocks.
Yeah.
And I think this is why I glommed so hard on this version of Tetris is if you find Tetris kind of difficult, and for people that didn't grow up playing it, which is a lot of people, it is really difficult. Like my wife doesn't play Tetris. Yeah. Because it stresses her out. She doesn't like it. She never got good at it. She never learned how to play it. They didn't. Yeah. Their first game system was an N64, and Tetris options there were limited at best. And so, like, if you're looking for someone that's like, yeah, I kind of want to get into Tetris, but it's hard. I have a hard time with it. This one is a really accessible version of it, I think. So I did want to point that out and interrupt you entirely. Please continue.
No, this is a shared entry, so please chime in. My favorite mode on this, though, is the push mode. I love push
I like
Tetris.
that one, too, yeah.
It is, because for people who haven't played it, it's the Donkey Kong themed one, and you've got your playing field and another player, which I think this one is multiplayer only. I don't think there's a CPU version of it. Mm-hmm. Their play field is at the bottom of the screen, and you're pushing against each other, and there's just some random garbage pieces in the middle, and anytime you push a piece down, it pushes the play field into their area, and if they push a piece down, it pushes it up into your area, and it gets increasingly stressful because you're constantly push and pull against each other. But it is also weird that if there is a gap all the way into their area, you can just like drop it into nothing, and it just fades off at the top of their screen. Which is neat and interesting, and I really appreciate it.
I liked the what was the Metroid one where you're just kind of a floating blob in space?
Oh yeah,
and you have to like
kind of a 3D-ish Tetris where
it's like 4-way Tetris.
Yeah. That was
I like
weird.
that one a lot too. It's just some weird shit. Some of them are kind of weird. Like the touch mode is kind of lame.
Yeah.
It has 2 modes inside of it. There's the tower mode and the puzzle mode, and they're just kind of like, I don't love that. A catch mode, that's what it's called. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, catch mode where you're floating around and like catching blocks onto this big ship of blocks. It's really cool. I like that one a lot. Yeah, for the longest time, Tetris DS was my like go-to recommendation for when people are like, what's the best Tetris? Go play Tetris DS. It's I'll say that it's up there as far as like most fun Tetrises for me. Like just pure fun. I don't know, like pure classic Tetris, I'd probably still go Patris. But if you just want like a fun game that's obviously enjoying itself and having a good time, Tetris DS is real good for that.
Now,
for sure.
I've heard that that it was not very popular at all in Japan.
Really?
For some reason, and it was exceedingly popular over here in the West. I don't know why.
It was out of print for a little while. It was rare to find.
Yeah.
For a brief period, and then they finally did a reprint of it. So
that's good because it deserved it.
Yeah, I'm sure the price has already skyrocketed back up, like we learned last episode about all DS games.
Yeah.
My next one is a game called Blockseed.
Okay.
Which I discovered going on the hunt for weird Tetrises for this show. This was Sega developed and published in 1989 in Japan. It did come to American arcades in 1990.
Okay.
It is basically regular Tetris, except you have garbage blocks always kind of flowing up from the bottom. It uses the same randomization method as Sega Tetris.
Okay.
And this is in the M2, the 2500 whatever series on PS2, where they did those M2 collections.
Oh, yeah.
On PS2, and this is the Tetris collection. And it includes Classic Tetris, Blockseed, and one other game that sucked a lot, and I forgot what it was called. But So it's the same randomization method as Sega Tetris for anyone that's played Sega Tetris, which I believe was the Tetris they included on the Genesis Mini.
True. Yes.
And some blocks include, so like each Tetris block is always 4 little mini blocks, and one of the individual blocks will occasionally include a single block that is a letter. And that letter is a power-up. So when you clear that individual block, it gives you that power-up.
That's neat.
The first power-up is Flicky from the Sega game Flicky.
Nice.
And he comes out, and you can drop single blocks with him as he falls.
Nice.
There's a shot where a satellite from the game SDI, which stands for like Space Defense something, it's some old Sega game, comes out and can fire at blocks as it falls. You get a bomb that just destroys a 2x2 zone, a 16-ton block that falls from the top of the screen and just clears a 3-column wide gap all the way down to the bottom. And then you get the 4, and the 4 clears the first, 3rd, 5th, and 7th rows as long as they have stuff in them, which is a really weird power-up, but a super useful one.
Yeah.
And so I played a good bit of this.
Now, does it drop the lines in between down when it does that?
Yeah, they go down. Good. So it clears the line, drops them down.
Nice.
The actual Tetris here is a bit iffy. Blocks are kind of sticky. The rotation feels weird. This is a thing
probably uses Sega Tetris physics, which
I imagine
is weird if you're not used to it.
Like you can't rotate blocks up against a wall, which is one that always gets me. Like that's such a bizarre thing, which when you think about it physically in the game, it makes sense. Like to rotate up against the wall pushes the block over, but in my brain, I need it to rotate against walls. Very little rotation. It's just kind of a difficult Tetris, which is this kind of, it's the same as Sega Tetris, but the power-ups are so weird and interesting that they still make it a very fun version of Tetris. This is all the Sega versions of Tetris are ones where I make a lot of mistakes and run into issues just interacting with the physics. Yeah. But the power-ups kind of make that palatable because you've always got outs with 16 tones and the 4s and flicky and shot and stuff. Nice. They make it a lot more accessible than it would otherwise be. And so it's just, it's fun. It's got multiplayer modes, and it's just a weird, I don't know why it's called Boxeed. It doesn't have anything to do with boxes. And presumably Sega had the Tetris license at the time because they made a Sega Tetris.
Right.
So they could
maybe they had lost it by this point.
Maybe. I'm just confused why it wasn't called like Sega something, or Tetris something, not Sega something. Right. Like Tetris... Flicky's Tetris. I don't know, something. But yeah, it's really weird. It's really fun. It's one that I don't hear mentioned or talked about very often. And even I kind of had to just randomly discover it inside of a compilation on PS2.
Nice.
And I think it's only in Japanese because the PS2 version was the Japanese version. Yeah. I don't know. I don't imagine this was very prevalent in American arcades, although it does say it came out. So who the heck knows? But yeah, this Boxeed, very strange. Very, very strange version of Tetris. I would say probably the most fun version of Sega Tetris that I've played so far. So for what that's worth.
Nice.
Yeah. What's your next one?
Well, I will also go with a Sega Tetris then, and Tetris the Grandmaster.
Yeah, you've talked about this one a bunch.
Yes.
Many times.
If people aren't familiar with Tetris the Grandmaster, it is a series of games that Arika did in Japanese arcades, starting in 88 through 2005, though they did recently release them on Arcade Archives. And again, it's basically Sega Tetris, but specifically emphasizing tournament level players.
Mm-hmm.
And you can occasionally find this in arcades here in the West. They're technically all Japanese exclusive, but it is a regularly imported arcade machine. Sometimes even in arcades that don't do a lot of imports, I'll see Tetris the Grandmaster.
Yeah, I saw it at the arcade at Grapevine Mills Mall when I was there recently.
Round 1 has one. Yeah. It is a game that gets very fast, very quickly. As far as Tetris games go, it does feel a little bit harder, a little less forgiving, because it is marketing itself towards those tournament level players. It's marketing itself towards those skill level players.
Yeah.
And so I'm not great at it. I'm okay. I can finish the game every now and then because it does have a finite finish. in its main mode. But watching tournament level players play it is where I really enjoy it. Because watching some people who are actually competent playing Tetris the Grandmaster is ludicrous. It is your ludicrous level tournament Tetris playing.
Yeah.
Which you see that with any of the Tetrises that are played at a tournament level, but because this one is designed for it, it gets silly. And I appreciate that. I appreciate how fast it can move and how impressive tournament level play on it looks. And if you want to play it these days, just pick it up on the Switch because it's available on Arcade Archives. But just watching somebody play it on YouTube or something is worth it. That's impressive to me, and it is fun to watch.
I keep meaning to spend some time with it, and I just don't.
It's tough.
Other things happen in life.
Yeah, I mean, it is very Sega Tetris-y. So if you've already played Sega Tetris, you're going to know kind of how it goes. It's just much faster.
I don't, and I know we have some people that are pretty entrenched in the Tetris community in our Discord, and so I would love to hear, like the different Tetris sub communities, because presumably, like I know a lot of the skills transfer, but I see a lot of people playing like NES Tetris, and presumably there's people that are like, no, I do the Sega Tetris family, and I'd be curious how many different like sub, groups within the Tetris community there are that are playing these different versions of Tetris with slightly different. Because if you go on the Tetris wiki, which is amazing to read, I don't understand any of it. You learn a lot of jargon, a lot of terminology, a lot of stuff about all the different physics and different things that, growing up, I would play this or that Tetris and be like, that felt not like Tetris, but I don't know why. And then later on, someone will be like, oh, there was no rotation once it reached the thing, or there's no this, or there's, and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't even realize that, but yeah, that is probably why it felt strange. You know?
There's a lot of slight physics changes, and especially the earlier ports of Tetris. The big three flavors you saw early on were, at least here in the West, were the Nintendo variant, the Atari variant, and the Sega variant. And then there was also, of course, the actual original PC game, which was variant. So there were these weird different physics changes between them that you could tell, you could feel them, but we later developed terminology for them, and it gets real in depth and way above my head.
My next one is my next two were boring, but I got my fun ones out of the way up front. Is Tetris Effect. This was released 2018, which was 6 years ago, so it's retro Saturn. It counts.
It's basically retro. Yeah,
it is probably the most prominent like current Tetris. I don't know that they've released another major Tetris since Tetris Effect. I guess you could count Tetris Effect Connected, which was kind of the follow-up to this, but basically the same game just with new features. And I may mention features that are from Connected and not from the original Tetris Effect because the line between the two is blurry for me. This was produced by Tetsuya Mizuguchi, who we did an episode on. Also possibly his best game, according to our assessment at the time on that episode. And it has been ported to basically everything, including MetaQuest and Switch. It is a beautiful soundtrack. I have it on vinyl and do listen to it because it is very good.
Nice.
It features gorgeous, like evolving visuals in the background of all of the play fields. There's heaps of different modes. I like Zen mode in this one in particular. Normally, I don't do Zen mode in Tetris games, but this one, because of the constantly evolving backgrounds and different block shapes that are very Luminace for anyone that's played Luminace and maybe not Tetris Effect. Same kind of idea where music is going, everything's happening in rhythm, and the blocks and the backgrounds are evolving with the songs as you play. It makes Zen mode extra fun to play in this. It has a really weird and interesting cooperative multiplayer mode where you all kind of like team up against a big bad guy. It's hard to explain. But the big gameplay wise feature that it adds is the zone mode that lets you freeze the game and clear as many lines as you can, and it feels real good to pull off like a big Zen drop, and it lets you get like multiple Tetrises in a row.
And if you can go into zone mode and then clear out like the entire screen, oh man, that feels good.
And it's on. I mean, it's on fucking everything. I was looking at It's PS4, 5, Windows, Xbox One, Series, Nintendo Switch, MetaQuest. It's everywhere.
Because originally it was PS4 exclusive.
It was for a brief period, on its original release.
And then when the connected version came out on Xbox, it also ended up coming out on everything.
Yeah,
which is good.
And it's really good. They're still updating it. Like I have it on Steam, and it's still getting updates. It's still getting content. They're still adding stuff to it, so they still do seem, dedicated to continuing it. And
I was checking the Tetris company's list of officially licensed Tetris games to see if anything came out after that. We got Puyo Puyo Tetris 2.
Oh, yeah.
We got Tetris the board game.
Oh, you know what? I remember seeing that, and I was like, how in the fuck does that
also,
work?
Tetris Arcade in a tin.
Tetris Arcade in a what?
In a tin.
Oh, in a tin. T-I-N.
Yeah. And it looks like a little Altoids can.
Okay. Yeah, there have been some like handheld Tetrises. I saw a micro arcade Tetris at the video game museum. Those little credit card sized micro arcade games that I don't know if you've seen any of those.
That's what the one in a tin is. It looks like it's in a little Altoids tin.
I've also seen the tiny, like the one that looks like a little baby arcade machine. That's
nice.
4 inches tall.
Right.
So yeah. Speaking of tiny weird Tetrises.
Yeah.
What's your next pick?
Well, I skipped one. I was going to go back to it, but no, I'll do this instead.
All right.
Tetris Junior. I have to. I loved this. It's not great. Anyway, so this was a Tetris keychain that was developed by Blue Planet Software, which was Hank Rogers' company that is now known as the Tetris Company. And it was distributed by Squaresoft, of all fucking people, in 1996. So this is mid-90s keychain-shaped video game.
Yep.
And it was Tetris. And I played so much of this, a ludicrous amount of this. Granted, this is very primitive technology by today's standards. This was like the kind of tech you'd see in an early Tamagotchi.
Well, let me tell you, because they re-released this in Japan
I remember that.
not long ago, and I bought one, and it looks different. It's not called Tetris Junior.
Right.
There were a few variants, and it was like $30, but the software was the same.
Yes.
Because it's kind of this weird, like, not Tetris.
It's just janky as far as its physics and everything.
The playing field feels too short and too wide, and the blocks are not square. They're kind of rectangular.
Yeah.
And it makes rotating non-square blocks really, like, physics-wise strange. And it plays some weird, like, rights-free music. I don't remember what it was.
Well, if you want to play the original version of it, that does have kind of the variant of the licensed Tetris theme. Squaresoft had it on their website back in the day, a downloadable PC emulator of the Tetris keychain, and it's on archive.org.
Oh, wonderful.
So you can go find Tetris Junior for PC on archive.org and replay it the way that I played it on a shitty keychain, but on your PC.
I looked up the playfield size. It's 8x12.
Yeah.
There's no hold piece, no hard drop. In rotation system, it says ? Because looking at the Tetris wiki, they have the Eureka rotation, Nintendo rotation, original Sega, Super rotation, and Tetris 64. So these are all different rotation types. And this one is just...
Yeah, that's about right. I loved this. It's not great. It's not authentic Tetris. But for 1996, having this in your pocket was amazing. And I would constantly whip it out in the middle of school and just play some Tetris. And then realize that I'd forgotten to turn off the sound and it was super loud and everybody stares at me and I didn't care because Tetris. And apparently somebody snagged a picture of me playing it and put it in the yearbook, and I didn't realize this was happening until I got my yearbook, and it's a 2-page spread of my face staring at Tetris. But yeah, it was a good version of Tetris for 1996 on a keychain.
And apparently it has different modes. I don't know if it's been so long since I played mine. Mine just sat on the back of my toilet tank for a long time. and it got played while I was pooping, so I never spent a lot of time with all the different modes.
Most of them were just, like A-type, B-type Tetris, clear garbage or whatever. And me and this girl that sat next to me in world history would pass it back and forth during class and see who could get the higher score. Yeah. And I usually won.
My final one here is another boring one. It is Tetris on Game Boy.
Yeah.
You might have heard of this. It was
I've heard of this. Yeah.
Released 1989 by Nintendo. It was packed in with early Game Boy models.
Yep.
It is not the most exciting version of the game. It's not even in color.
Yep.
In fact, compared to some other versions, it kind of barely stands out or is strictly inferior. But I still like it. And to this day, every now and then I'll get that Tetris mood, and when it strikes me, I go play Game Boy Tetris.
That's fair.
I don't remember having Game Boy Tetris growing up, which is the weird part. And there was kind of a direct sequel to this with Tetris DX on Game Boy Color, which is kind of like the better version of Game Boy Tetris.
I don't like it as much.
Really?
Something about it felt weird to me.
Yeah, it has a question mark rotation. Is that what it is?
it might have question mark rotation.
But I don't know, something about like going back to this Game Boy Tetris, and I think what it is for me is it's kind of the same reason I like that Keychain Tetris. Is it's sort of like the minimal amount of Tetris to still feel like Tetris.
Yeah.
And I would say that like Keychain Tetris kind of doesn't feel like Tetris. It feels like Tetris adjacent,
I will say that because that keychain runs so janky and slow, it made me much better at Tetris because because it was slowed down so much that it helped my brain process, how all the pieces should move, what the best way to put them together was.
For sure.
And then when I went back to proper Tetris, I was much better at it.
Yeah. I think Game Boy Tetris is kind of my minimum viable Tetris to
That's
feel like actually Tetris and not like some weird ass version of it. So I still like it. I still pull this out plenty and pop it in my Game Boy pocket and play some Tetris because, it's where it started for, I'd say probably most Americans.
Yeah.
It was Game Boy Tetris.
NES.
Either NES or Game Boy Tetris, which are very, very similar feeling versions of the game.
Yep.
And so I think it's still it's still worth playing. It's still fun, and it's still very often again I'll be like, I just want Tetris, but I don't want the fluff. And I'll break this one out and still enjoy the heck out of it. So as far as like favorites go, it's still definitely in my favorites rotation.
That's fair.
What's your final pick?
No, I still have 2. I've only done 3.
Oh, you have 2?
Yeah.
How did we? I guess because you did your Tetris DS and I piggybacked on that.
Yep.
And then, sure, lay them out there.
So, first, I'm going to do the new Tetris, which was on N64.
What's so
it's
new
not new
it?
Anymore, by the way.
No. Now it's the old new Tetris.
Yeah, it's the new old Tetris. So this was developed by H2O Entertainment and published by Nintendo, but not in Japan. Nobody published it in Japan. It was only in North America and Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So first, it's 4-player multiplayer, which is neat, and I like that. But second and more importantly is the silver and gold blocks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can make a perfect 4x4 block using any 4 Tetronymos, it turns silver, and it becomes one big 4x4 silver brick in your playfield. And if you do the same, but with the same Tetronymo, 4 of the same piece, and make a 4x4 brick, it turns gold, which is just, it's neat looking, whatever. But if you clear that block, silver blocks do double the garbage damage to the other players, and gold blocks do 4 times the garbage damage to other players.
Starting to notice several of your Tetris picks are very multiplayer oriented.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this one is very much the multiplayer Tetris for me. Like, if I want to play Tetris multiplayer, I want to play the N64 one. And it was very good for that. For single player, it was basically just Tetris. It was nothing new, nothing brought to the table. But for multiplayer, it added enough interesting changes to make it worth going to this version.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Next Tetris came out on PS1 and Saturn, and I felt like it was very boring compared to this because it didn't bring anything new. It was just basically vanilla Tetris, whereas the N64 game actually felt like it was bringing something new to the table.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I'll mention is Tetris 99, which came out on Switch a couple of years ago.
Yes. I don't think I
5 years
played
ago.
No, I played this like twice, and it was extremely stressful for me. Did not enjoy this.
So the focus was the 99 player mode, which is still available. But they eventually added a single player mode and an offline mode and released a physical cartridge that you can play single player offline. So this was developed by Eureka, which is the same people that made Tetris the Grandmaster. And it was the first Tetris game they had made since 2005. And it's all about that multiplayer, 99-player Battle Royale Tetris. But they did eventually add single player. And it's stupid. I love the idea of dumb Battle Royale Tetris. And I'm glad that other dumb Battle Royale games like Mario 35 and Pac-Man 99 have come out since then, which apparently Eureka did both of those. I was not aware that Eureka
did not know that.
Those games. But from what I was reading, they developed all three of them.
Yeah.
And I think they did a good job because they're all pretty fun. I'm upset that Mario 35 is gone forever, but it's Nintendo.
Thanks,
for you.
Nintendo.
But Tetris 99 is still around, and you can play it, and it's fun, and it's silly to play 99 player
offline
Tetris.
Battle Royale Tetris would be less stressful to me.
Yeah, the offline does offer Battle Royale now, which is good because there's rarely ever 99 people online for it anymore. And it's fine. It's all right. It's not as... Those first few weeks of the online mode were silly. Because it was very fast paced because of how many people were online. Yeah. And it's still pretty fast paced even with the CPU players. But it doesn't feel as ridiculous as it used to. But it's still a fun game.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk honorable mentions.
Yeah.
The obvious one here is Tetris Attack, which did we do a paneled upon episode?
I don't remember. I think we may have.
I feel like I don't know, but
we
if
should
not,
have.
You should go play it because it's good.
I think we did do I think we just called the episode Tetris Attack. We did. Yeah.
Yes.
God, it was years ago.
It was an old one.
It was in 2018.
Yeah. Tetris Attack is fun. It's a very good game. It's not Tetris at all.
No.
It's a totally different game that they wrote the word Tetris on.
Yes.
I have an honorable mention, which is Microsoft Tetris from the Microsoft Entertainment Pack for Windows.
Yeah.
I think this was probably also a lot of people's introductions to Tetris. It's one that I've played a bunch. It's not an amazing version of the game, but there is something like weird and stoic about it. Like it's there's no music. It's just utterly silent, pure Tetris, single mode, hard drop only, no hold piece. That's it.
See, the only Tetrises that I played on my computer back then, pre-emulation anyway, were the DOS version that Spectrum Hallbyte put out, which was the officially licensed one, whatever. And then also one made by, as a fan game, by a guy named Felipe Basciano, who I'm guessing is possibly from Italy, based on the name. But it was a bundle of games. It was a fan-made port of Tetris. It was a fan-made port of Dr. Mario that he called Gelules. And then also a fan-made game, an original game, which instead of using tetronomos, used pentonomos, where they all had 5 pieces, but it still played like Tetris, and it was called Progressive Tetris Outline, or Proto-Tetris.
Oh.
And it was weird and not real great, because 5 pieces don't fit together as well as 4. But I played a shitload of it.
Have you ever actually looked at the cover art for Microsoft Entertainment Pack for Windows?
Is that the one with everything blowing out of its brain?
No, it's the one where, because I went to find this version of Tetris, because I didn't play this one when I was a kid. I played it as an adult because I wanted to know which version of Tetris was being played in the movie Office Space. Oh. In that scene where he's playing Tetris and eating Cheetos.
Yeah.
And I found it, and I played a lot of it when I found it. I was like, this is a weird... You know what it was? Is I liked that it was silent. So I could like have music going on my computer in the background. The cover for Microsoft Entertainment Pack for Windows features a domino, cards, a computer mouse, stuff that makes sense. You know, okay, that makes sense. A water gun, a toy boat, a small car, some marbles, a paper airplane, and some colored pencils. Why? Did you just run out of shit to put there? Put game pieces there. Why is there a water gun? Just very strange. It's a very weird version of Tetris, but I liked it. I liked playing it. It's a good time. Do you have any other honorable mentions?
It's the ones that I can think of. I remember a Microsoft Entertainment Pack that had Tetris, but it did not have that cover. It just had a bunch of shit blowing out of a guy's head.
It was re-released in Microsoft's Best of Windows Entertainment Pack.
Oh, I see.
Which that one is probably the entertainment pack that you had, because it would have been a later one. I was trying to look up the cover art for the Best of Entertainment Pack.
I just
no, it's not that cover either.
That I have.
It's not that one. Interesting.
This was, Entertainment Pack Puzzle Collection is the one that I had.
And I see Tetris on the list. Tetris Wiki didn't list it though. Tetris Wiki, you're wrong.
I think it's the same.
Incomplete.
It's probably the same Tetris that was in the other pack.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, I mostly played it on console, so that's all I remember for PC was the one goofy off-brand one and the DOS one.
As far as final thoughts, I picking my favorite Tetris was hard. It ended up being kind of an odd mix of comfort and features, kind of battling it out with each other.
Yeah.
You know, Game Boy Tetris, Tetris DS, Tetris Effect, very comfortable games for me. But then, like, Block Seed is really cool, and Apotris is so cool and has so many options. Like, if I were to crown a champion, for me, I think it's still Apotris. But the visuals and the relaxing nature of Tetris Effect and the simple familiarity of Game Boy and the novelty of Tetris DS, like, I immediately begin second-guessing myself. There's too many to choose from. And I feel like every time I kind of start to settle on one as like, this is my favorite, because for the longest time it was Tetris DS. Something new comes out, or I discover an old weird version like Block Seed that I didn't know about.
Right.
There's just, I don't even know how many there's got to be hundreds of Tetris games. There's hundreds of them.
Oh,
it's its own fucking genre.
Right.
And I'm constantly discovering new stuff. So it's a hobby unto its own.
And I know at least one person who exclusively plays Tetris. That is the only video game they have played, and it's the only game that they have enjoyed. Yeah. It's the only game they go back to. And they actually have multiple versions of Tetris that they play, and they like go back and forth between them.
Wow. So I mean, there's enough of them. You can totally do that. Absolutely. Anyway, you know what else you can totally do?
No.
Go to our Patreon at patreon.com/Retro Warriors, where you can hear us talk about vomit and the texture of vomit and meat falling off of ladders. And apparently it's just a sitcom from the 90s with a stupid dad. That's what our pre-show is, I guess.
That's what
vomit
your life is.
And falling off of ladders. I know. I didn't tell this story on the air yet, but a couple days ago, and it's a tangent, but it's the end of the night. A couple days ago, I was hanging a pegboard for my wife. To hang her water bottles, just a bunch of water bottles. And I was like, well, we'll put up a pegboard in the pantry and hang her water bottles. Yeah. And I hit a wire and it took out a breaker in my house. And like my drill bit came out all blackened, you know?
Nice.
And so I had to call an electrician to fix the wire. But after I did that, I was like trying to fuss with it and like figure out what all was going on, because it's a wire in the wall I've now severed. And it was like 3 days after I had fallen off the ladder into poison ivy. And she's like, don't fucking touch, Courtney don't fucking touch any of it. Yeah. Don't go near any of it. Don't go in the same room as it. Just leave it alone and call an electrician.
Yep.
We're not going back to the ER. I was like, okay. And I did call my dad and I was like, hey, how do I fix this? And he goes, well, cut open the wall and then tape it. I was like, I'm going to call an electrician.
Yep.
And then I did.
And they came out and cut open the wall and taped it.
Yeah, well, no, they put in junction boxes and then fixed it the right way. But so there you go. There's a preview of the kind of content that you can get at our Patreon, patreon.com/Retro Warriors, where you can give us money like these people. Eric.
Ham-ha, it is I, Napi the hamster.
Joystick Cowboy.
Fimble.
Samo Bam.
David Allen.
Edward Majewski Jr.
Emil Rune.
Michael Winters.
Possibly Emil Rune Mahler.
Oh, yeah, I think it got mangled in the translation. Yeah, Michael Winters.
And Mike Zepax.
Are all the patrons we want to thank for their very kind donations I always call them kind. I don't know how they
Yeah.
make the donations.
It
They
could
might
be
make
angry
them
donations. You've
be angry.
you've also opened up the possibility that it's angry
Yeah,
donations.
we don't. I don't want to make any assumptions about the state of anybody's mind when they make these donations that I consider to be very kind.
Yeah.
But thank you to everybody who makes this possible. And hopefully by the next time we record, I will have talked to my internet service provider and been like, hey, what's wrong with my fucking internet? Fucking up my VoIP calls all the time. Because,
And then they'll say nothing and hang up on you.
yeah, that's basically what's going to happen. No, they charge $80 to send a tech out. So if you're like, hey, can I give you $80 and you send a guy out? They're like, yeah, totally. So I'll probably just do that.
Hooray.
But, we did it, Saturn. We did the shows. We got through them.
And it's only 1 a.m, Justin.
My internet only messed up 1, 2, 3, 4 times that I can count, and at least 5 or 6 that you can probably count.
More than that.
So this is it's been great. It's not stressful at all. Everything's
It's fine.
awesome.
It'll be fine.
Did it fine.
No
Maybe
one
next
else
time-
would have even noticed if you hadn't brought it up.
I do want to say that due to the OneDrive outage, I'm sitting here on the OneDrive website with our Word doc pulled up, and my uBlock origin is now blocking over 1,000 elements.
I'm in 990.
The OneDrive page.
I also like that the OneDrive website has a button to add a suggested image to the top of our document. So I just told it to add an image, and it's just like a bunch of random numbers.
Great!
I don't know if you could see it or not. It's
I
at the
heard you
top of the
closed
document.
it.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.